equal to the same. It'll kind of give you those keywords that you're going to be focusing on. And then it gives you the actual task. And they start off fairly easy, so my class will probably only be focusing on these first couple of pages. And then they get a little more challenging, less picture prompts, as you can see for some of the earlier ones. They had, the 4 glasses, the 2 chairs. Whereas here they don't have as many picture cues, so that'll kind of increase the rigor for some of your students. And then you get into your higher math. So this may not necessarily pertain to, you may not pull from all the lessons, but you may be able to just use the math ones. And this is just for this one. Go back to the home page. Now, the grade band is high school, and then they also have like transition stuff too. If you want to go to the library, if you already have in mind what you're going to do. So, for example, Miss Lemon may be talking about maths in her class. So, Ava and Andy map. When it has this symbol, it means it's interactive. And then if it has the PDF symbol, then it's a PDF that you would download. So let's say you guys read the story. Let's say you think the story is not really challenging enough for your students, kind of simple, and you want to do something supplemental to add rigor. You can, on National Geographic, a lot of times I supplement a lot of my social studies. So here, this is an activity that I use a lot with my kids.
I drive a tour bus and I need to get around the island faster. Can you help? First, you will need to understand simple. A big
So
boat like
it breaks
this.
down concepts about a map. So there's a big boat. You can't have that big picture of a boat on your map. So it's going to explain how they break it down
May
on
look small and simple.
to
This
the map P.
tells us, okay, now you click
So then it has the kids match up what the symbols are. So, and then at the end, so
They match. That's the next. They match. And they match. And they match. Match. They match. Good job.
then this is where it gets kind of more interactive. So sometimes it breaks down even more symbols. You can have the kids do it, and then he's taking his kids on a tour, and the kids have to find the places, and it's timed. And so the more places you get, the more you earn in tips. So it can kind of teach them that job skill. So, a lot of our kids think they're going to be driving, and, Uber and popular things like that. It could be a concept that you can kind of teach them so they can understand that's a job, and, reading math as well. Another cool lesson that I did was where does it come from? And that was pretty much talking about where about trade, where different like cosmetics come from France. No, this one pop up if I type it in. Let's see if the story pop up. But they have different categories. So for here for economics, you could talk about the different countries based on the story, and then you can do an activity about where things come from around the world. So National Geographic also has a closet calculator. So with that, you're pretty much having the kids look at articles of their clothing, you put it in there, and it shows you on the map where they come from. And it's fairly simple. So the kids can pick out what they want the kid to look like. I think my kid, I think they had like a robot bottom and a cowboy top or something. And then you just start looking up. So if one of your kids has a dress shirt, and made in China, maybe they had maybe two of your kids. So then at the end, whenever you're finished, you can view it on the map. So of course, right now we just did the one item, but it'll show all over the map where the things come from. So that's the way that you can kind of pull from Younique and then use supplemental material from that. I use this Weebly Interactive a lot. So a lot of times we might do an activity and I might use this. So let's say we're in Younique and we're talking about shoes. That's not going to be in economics, that's not. So building with shapes and colors. This one's a PDF, so it doesn't have that interactive feature. So you're learning about the shapes and you're learning about the different types of buildings for this story. So let's say you kind of read over this story for your math class. You may not want to go over these questions that come along with it because they may not be appropriate for your kids, but they do have a glossary, so these are vocabulary words that you could use for a Quizlet, which I'll show you that in a second. But you may also want to use one of these interactive websites. So let's say you're talking about different shapes. Let's say you're focusing on squares and you want to talk about area and perimeter. They have a lot of these interactive websites, interactive games that you could do with your kids. So finding area and perimeter of rectangles. Then you could also, let's say, in social studies, you wanted to kind of bounce off of that, where does it come from concept, and you just wanted to go over the continents. There are different activities for that as well, and they're all interactive, so you can have your kids get the marker, and then they can, you know, click and drag, and do the activities. So, the Weebly Interactive has a lot of stuff. They update it, so some of the things will change, and some of them, sometimes the links don't always work, but for the most part, they do a good job of making sure all the activities are on there. So they have brain teasers, they have a lot of different cool things.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you do the interactive stuff on the board, do you have them just come up and use your computer to drag it on there, or? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I usually just have the board on and they come and do it. Sometimes they might have teams. They might do it, we might do it as a team, or they might do it individually until the whole assignment is done.
I'm sitting there thinking, because I've done some things like that, and it was a little difficult because, like, some classes can be really big, like 14,
Right.
50, so it was just a little hard. And I've done this a little bit, but it just seemed like it would be better if they had like maybe
Like,
I did the cows.
If you did the cows and had them do it individually, yeah.
Okay.
So that's another option.
Can you click on brain teasers? What type of information they got back there? There.
Oh, the computers, you can go get them. Yeah,
You can get them.
yeah, when you can get them. They'll be on reserve, you have to get them.
It stands for computers, wheels, computer on wheels or something.
Computer on wheels,
I think.
Yeah. So then you can have them click and drag for this or whatever. Right.
I guess you read directions.
Right.
It looks like they're.
These kind of stuff my kids do. Like,
Right.
What is it?
they're very into it. Yes.
Like teams.
They probably do, yeah, I think they do teams. I've done teams.
Music goes on, sorry.
That is like almost.
Right.
I was doing
Yeah, some of them are just too high for some of our kids.
Quizlet is my favorite.
But, oh yeah, so let me go show you guys Quizlet. So on the one story, at the end of it, it had this glossary. So this is good, because for, our MLs, it has the picture cues that we can use.
I like
But for the MI students, you may want to try and use Quizlet. It's not really as, it doesn't work as well for, your non-readers,
right.
but this would be really good for you guys.
I love it. It's my favorite.
So on Quizlet, it's free. They have features you can pay for, but what Quizlet is an interactive flashcard. Miss Davis, don't you have an account? Do you want to log?
I don't have
An account you just use it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So but it's free, and you make your flashcards, and so it's interactive. So the kids you can do it, quiz them based on definitions or the words. They do have features like for $25 a year or something.
Cool.
You can do like the class progress and upload images, voice recording, but it's a free tool that you guys can use for your readers and then to kind of help. So if you wanted to read that story and then use the words from the glossary and make a Quizlet, you could, and you would have those interactive games and those
Even for like the
study
non-readers,
tools.
they even have a thing on there now, so spell, like it spells for them and
Right.
it spells the words for them. So that even helps, the ones that really can't.
Right.
read. So they have that too.
So those are like, yeah, for your emerging readers, that would be a good tool to use as well.
Generally, if you, Google searches, say if you're looking at best,
You know, I love to, you know, something like, you know.
teacher saves them, so they
Right.
go right to the Quizlet for you,
Mhm.
you don't even have to make it up.
Right, yeah, a lot of those topics are already on here.
Yeah, you can just type in your topic and
It'll pull it up.
I love the test on there. And you can differentiate with your test too.
You can make different.
You can make different tests, I have different tests for different students too.
I also like to use Teachers Pay Teachers.
Oh, you know, I like that too.
So they have a lot of free, so let's say, because for this month, we want to talk about civil rights. Now, of course, they have some things that you have to pay for, but they also do have free things as well. So sometimes I kind of pick and choose different activities from here. If, let's say you're working on word problems and math, addition, short start problems. So you have those, you have your addition story problems, you have your money story problems, you have, February activities, and they all are free word problems. So you can easily use that as well. So between Weekly, National Geographic, Quizlet, and then Brain Pop, you do require a username and password for some of the activities. I have one if you guys need it, but a lot of times, for example, science. We were talking about matter. They have a video about it. Then they have several videos. So,
So Brain Pop, you have to pay them.
no, well,
That's the one I heard
yeah, you do
about.
have to pay, but I have a username and password. But this one is free. So States of Matter is free, but these other ones you won't have access to
Because you have to pay.
because you have to have a membership.
Okay.
So the one thing I like about it, the videos they have a Brain Pop Junior, but the Brain Pop videos are a little more age appropriate for our students. At the end, they have quizzes. So this is something else you can rent the cows and have them do the quiz
Right.
individually, or you can kind of do it as a class. You can do a printed quiz as well. There's a feature for that.
This is the one I wanted to get.
Then a lot of times, like when 9/11 happened, they had that as one of the
Wish
featured
less.
stories.
Wish
So
list.
Charles Darwin is the feature story for today, but it'll change up kind of based on current events and holidays that are coming.
Okay.
So they have engineering, tech, health, arts and music, math, English, social studies, and science. They have a Brain Pop Junior. What, you want to do social studies? Let's see. They have some good ones.
U.S. government, U.S. history, the world, yeah.
So this is U.S. government. Like I said, branches of government, that's a free one. Your username and password, you'll be required to have access to some of these other ones. But let's go to civil rights, since that's what, Unique is focusing on for this month. So you have your video.
Oh, I love this. I knew.
The American Civil Rights Movement was about having universal rights for all people, regardless of gender, income, or schedule.
Oh, yes, I heard.
America in the first half of the 20th century was a very different place. In many parts of the country, black people and white people could eat the same lunch table or even use the same bathrooms. This practice of separating blacks and whites was called segregation. Segregation was widespread, and you could see it all over the place, even at school.
So we have a game up, a map.
So they a lot of times they have, like, as you saw, segregation was one of the words. So you can use that word, make a Quizlet, and use some of the words from your unique learning and also from the Brain Pop to kind of incorporate those together. So like I said, they have the quizzes. Sometimes they have games.
I see.
They have different activities, you guys. Do I have a right? There's a game you can play.
Oh, yes.
Take the game quiz afterwards. There's also a Brain Pop Junior. The username that I have gives you access to Brain Pop Junior as well. So for the MOs, this is also good. Sometimes some of the concepts are just, even with Brain Pop, they're a bit high for our kids. Like sometimes my kids can't do the quizzes for Brain Pop. The videos they love because they love Tim and Moby. They love the interaction between them because they know the robot's going to do something silly that's going to make them laugh. But sometimes the quizzes are too much. So Brain Pop Junior also talks about things like matter. That was what Unique Learning was doing last year. So they have the same videos. You still have the robot in the video. Usually it's a younger person in the video.
Check out my vase. What did you make, Moby? You made a vase too? What are physical changes?
That could be your central question
Everything is made of
on your
matter,
seats.
including this clay. This clay has different properties. It's thick, brown, and soft.
I'll give it to you.
Property
I'll
is a
email it to
trait
you
that
guys.
tells you something about an object.
There you go. There's your vocabulary word for Quizlet or your word wow, or however you choose. So then you have your easy quiz, you have your hard quiz. Sometimes I let my kids choose which one they want.
Is the easy quiz adaptable for our kids?
Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at it. So you can do the paper quiz or the online quiz. A lot of times we do the online.
What type of change?
So you guys can have access to the quizzes. They also have games a lot of times too.
Physical
I have a game for this one.
game.
They have
So
activities.
there's a game. Yeah, they have activities as well. Make your own volcano. That'll be a fun but messy one that you could use in the class, and they have the worksheets that you guys can print out as well.
Brain Pop Junior.
That's so good.
So those are a lot of the ways that I may not do all the activities, so that's kind of how it will be for you. So when we go back to all the activities, you may not see, so for this month, you could use a lot for social studies because we're talking about civil rights and different leaders, equality, community. The stories, like I said, some of them may be kind of low for the MI students, but you can kind of supplement those other things into the,
Or instead of using those stories, they could still pull out others, information stories about those, same people.
exactly. So you can just kind of use it as your tool. So who are they talking about in unique learning? Then that's when you can go to your Tar Heel reader and see if you can find the story based on those same people. Measure it. There's usually a cooking lesson that you could possibly use you could use it for your science, you could use it for your math, because you're dealing with measurements. Money, that's another concept. So a lot of times, some of the things are too high for my kids, or some of them I'm just not interested in doing, so I just kind of use it as my starting point. So sometimes I use the monthly lessons, or sometimes I just go to the library and I pull what I need. One thing that you want to be mindful of, the lessons expire at the end of every month. So it'll tell you, so we have 18 days left before all these activities expire. So you can still pull up the stories in the library, but you won't be, the stories you can pull up, but you won't be able to get all the activities to go with them.
The stories are there either. I've never been able to find the stories.
Really?
In the library.
In the library?
Once they gone, they gone.
They just have to be
That's
on-
why you can save them you can save the PDF.
Right, so you can save the PDF forms, but you only have access to the full lesson
For 30 days.
for the 30 days. And so with the lesson 0, it always gives you the breakdown of the full unit. So it can kind of tell you exactly what the full unit's going to cover for the whole entire month. So I'm going to kind of show you the core material so we can talk about the personalized binders that we're going to do. And then Ms. Ward's going to tell you how you can set up your students on here, because you can use it as an assessment tool to kind of do your student tracking and kind of use it to help set some of your IEP goals. I also, for one of my classes, I did a screencast on how to use unique learning. So I can send you the link for the screencast as well as a link to the supplemental resources and the usernames and passwords for them as well. So I want to go ahead and kind of go over the core materials. So what we were talking about with the personalized binders, they're going to look different for each class. You may be focusing on different things. So for my class, one thing that we do are the monthly calendars for the binder. I brought a sample of one of my students. This is Calista. She's not here, so I use hers. So like on the first, they put a cake for Coach Washington's birthday. They have my birthday on here. They have Miss Sheard's birthday. They have Nico's birthday, and all the holidays. They had sporting event for Special Olympics. No school on the 12th, Valentine's Day, President's Day. A lot of times, 2 of my students, they hang out on the weekends, so they plan their dates on their calendar. 2 of my students last year used to plan when they were getting their haircuts. So they would say, when you getting your haircut? And they would mark it on the same Saturday. Then I also, my students that go to the job site, they know to put the picture of this person with the desk on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, because those are the days they go off for job site. And for your kids, they may not feel like it's appropriate for them. So what I would recommend doing is just maybe even just getting, maybe not necessarily a binder for them, but maybe just a notebook or not a notebook, but one of those 3-prong folders, and they can kind of decorate it. And then just pulling up a calendar and publisher and having them do it themselves, so that they can kind of keep up with it. So if they wanted to do a monthly or a weekly calendar, you can kind of have them design their own, or maybe you may have a template that you use for your class. Therefore, they may feel like this is too kiddie for them.
Somewhere.
So some will, some won't. Some might like it. Some may enjoy the pictures. One of my students, he likes to draw his own pictures. So he might draw something that he thinks looks like a football and say, this is for Super Bowl. So you could also just print it out. They can make it personalized on the side. They can put what days they go to job site, where they go to job site. For your students who are involved in sports, they may want to put their basketball schedule or something on there. If you want it, for those who are more detail oriented, if you want, they can have the weekly ones so they can write down their assignments for each class. Ms. Farkana mentioned a code of conduct. If you have certain rules that you have in your classroom, you could use that. On Unique Learning, they have a grooming check. Sometimes our kids just simply forget to check those things in the morning. So you may have a groom check. You may pull this up and say, guys, we need to make sure, especially those of you who go to the job site, we need to make sure our face is clean, our hair is brushed, our teeth are brushed, deodorant's on, and clean clothes. But they may not want these picture prompts. Some of them may not care, and they may want to check it off themselves. Or you can kind of have it yourself. On my laptop, I wasn't able to pull it up because for whatever reason, the screen wasn't working. But I have a PowerPoint about work habits. There's another cool resource that you guys can use called Ruby Star. Some of you I've shared that with as well. So Ruby Star is also free.
For the rubric,
Yeah, for the rubric. So for Ruby Star, if you want it, instead of having the groom check from Unique, you use the one from Unique to create your own rubric. It's also free. You could create a rubric for work skills. And one thing I like, it kind of gives you a head start on what you want to put in there. So you can kind of choose the categories, behavior, it'll break down the point value, and it kind of gives you a starting point. So you could create your own rubric for your kids about what they need to do to be successful in the workplace, and they can self-assess themselves. So instead of using the pictures that I brush my hair, you could just have one for hygiene and have those things on there, and they will be responsible for checking off themselves to kind of self-evaluate whether they're prepared or not prepared for work.
right.
So it's gonna look different from class to class because you're gonna focus on different things. So Unique would be kind of your starting point, and then you could kind of fill in the rest.
So they have, these binders, they kind of have exactly what needs to be in there?
So what's,
That's what we're
yeah,
looking,
so
we will
we're
establish
putting it
today.
together. So you kind of see,
Yeah.
you think about your caseload and what is probably good things for your class. So what you have in your class may look slightly different from what I have in my class.
Right.
But you can always use this as a guide. So you don't necessarily have to use it, but you might have some kids, you may have some of those kind of in between, kind of low, kind of still emerging readers who still need some visuals. And then you may have those who this may not be appropriate for, so therefore you can kind of use this as your starting point. So that's all I have for supplemental activity, huh?
The sign,
The what?
the signage.
Sign in.
Oh yeah, the sign-in sheet. So you might have a sign-in sheet for your class. What I'd like to do for my class, I have a board that's by the door, and I have in and out, and I have magnets. Their name is there, and they have to like clock in and clock out every day. So that's what, instead of using this sign-in sheet, that's what I use for a sign-in. But for some of those who need to work on maybe their signature or just maybe making sure that they're more accountable for their time, then you may want to have a sign-in sheet for them to actually sign. But like I said, this is a good tool to use to figure out how you want to organize your binders in your classroom.
Okay.
So they have a lot of great things in the core materials section. And you can just kind of pick and choose what you need and what you don't need.
That job attendance, if you go back up there, for some of the students that tend to not want to go to work, especially in our MI, that not want to go to work, so they intentionally don't dress out, that could be some way to remind them that this is what things look like. Your work record, your work history. Are you employable at the end of the quarter or the end of the semester? Let's see what you have. Are you employable based on this information? So it can be used for that.
So yeah, even within your classroom, some of the binders may look different because everybody doesn't have students that go out to job site, or some people just have a few people that go. So even like on the calendars, they're gonna be the same to some degree because of the holidays and important school events, but they're still individualized based on each student's needs and what they are personally responsible for.
Okay, so we go on Unique basically, and everything that they have the binder to tell you what needs to be in there, and I'll look at this and I'll say, okay, this is appropriate for my kids, this is not appropriate.
Right.
So whatever's appropriate, I'll have that in the binder.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And then you don't have to have it all at once. It's something that you can kind of build.
And you
on.
don't have to have everything that's there,
Right.
Oh,
just
okay.
what you need.
Just
You
what
don't
you
have to
need.
get stressed out, I have to
Okay.
have all that, no, you don't. Just
Okay.
pick out what's needed for you and what's useful. The
Okay.
sign-in sheet, maybe the calendars for the whole year, you know, that may be
Cause
all
like the
you
weather,
can
like I
use.
wouldn't use the weather.
Yeah, you
and all
probably
that.
wouldn't want to
Okay.
use the
That's
weather.
it,
Or
if
the
that's all
lunch
you wanna
menu.
use, that's it.
Okay,
Right.
okay, I got it.
Keep in mind, I have ordered, I checked yesterday, they should be black binders for each student. They would have their own, and because it is their own personalized, it's based on their needs. And within your classroom, your binders may look very different from each other because of the areas that we need to help them be accountable in.
And this will be only our base students?
Just your base students.
Mhm.
They may add on. They may, like I said, if they're making like a weekly calendar, they may use it in other classes to write down homework assignments. But you're only responsible for preparing the core things in your baseless class.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
And
then,
that's what we're going to be working on today.
right.
So, just to go back, here's the home screen. Whenever it'll work right.
Are there
You have
any
your
other?
monthly lessons, which is where I showed you everything for this month. You can kind of preview next month. The iDoc are the interactive features. The PDFs are the ones you download. What I recommend is downloading the PDFs for the things that you may know may carry over into another month or, just in the future. And then the iDoc stuff, like I said, is the interactive features.
The iDoc you can't download.
You can't download that, so that's why I recommend downloading the PDFs, because you can save those. The iDocs are kind of what you're gonna use right away.
Did you tell them about the supplemental science lessons?
No, because the science person's not here, but you can.
There's also supplemental science lessons at the bottom, if you go all the way down to the bottom.
Right down there. Mhm.
Yeah, so these are some of the science things for this month. The symbol sticks may not be appropriate for most of your students, but they do have, kind of like for Board Maker, where they have, the different symbols to kind of go along with, like they have for like Martin Luther King, civil rights, they have those symbol sticks. The core materials, like I said, are gonna be for your personalized binders. Your transition passport, you have your library, where you can kind of go based on content area and look for things. Your News to You GPS is where you're going to set up your caseload